Stories in motion. Some time ago, barely the family of four, Adeniyi, Amaka, Ozzy, and Tobi. To Tobi, love wasn't just a feeling, it was a living, breathing thing that filled their home on Freedom Street. You could hear it in the way his parents, his father, Adeniyi, known to everyone as Nini, and mother, Amaka, called each other sweetheart without irony. You could see it in the way his father's hand always found his mother's back in the crowd, guiding her with gentle respect. You could feel it in the warm, delicious air of their family kitchen, where Sunday stew simmered on the stove, while high life music played from an old Bluetooth speaker with a cracked edge. Theirs was a middle class life by Lagos standards, modest, comfortable, filled with the hum of power generators, the scent of fried plantain, and the daily chaos of traffic reports and NEPA surprises. The living room had a brown leather couch bearing so much history. A 30 inches LG TV that can be said to have been readapted to the ever unreliable power supply, and a portrait of Jesus hanging slightly crooked above the doorway. But that room held the world. It was where they laughed until tears rolled, where Niyi, the father, made up bedtime stories so ridiculous that Tobi and his sister begged for more, where Amaka, their mother, corrected everyone's grammar mid-conversation, but always with a kiss on the forehead to soften the blow. They weren't perfect, but to a 12-year-old boy, they were everything. Niyi was a civil engineer, sharp-witted and steady-handed, with a quiet charisma that made people trust him within seconds. Amaka was a secondary school administrator in a private school, a natural problem solver, fiercely intelligent, with an infectious laugh that rang like a bell. Together, they ran the household like a well-rehearsed orchestra. Ozzy, 15, had inherited her mother's sharpness and her father's stubborn streak. Tobi, the baby of the house, was wide-eyed, fast-talking, and always barefoot. On Friday evenings, the family had a ritual. They'd return from work and school, change into old, comfortable clothes, and gather around the TV with steaming bowls of something to munch. Nii always let them watch something fun before the evening news. Afterward, he'd give his own Toby-style breakdown of the headlines, dramatic, exaggerated, and hilarious. Ozzy would roll her eyes and laugh in spite of herself. Amaka would shake her head and say, "You and this your comedy career." There was always laughter, always teasing, always a sense of pause. But underneath the comfort of their routines, a quiet tension had begun to grow, a shadow that stretched long with each new headline. The economy was declining rapidly. Inflation rose while salaries stayed frozen. Protests spilled into the streets now and then. Fuel queues grew longer, and people disappeared without explanation. And yet, life continued because it had to. It was Amaka who voiced what had been silently weighing on both of them. "I don't want us to wait till something bad happens," she said one late night after the kids had gone to bed. She stood by the kitchen window, sipping a drink, her brows furrowed. Nii was seated at the dining, reading something on his tablet. He looked up. "You think moving abroad is the answer?" I think, she hesitated, searching for the words. I think we owe our children a chance at stability. You know how hard it is to raise good kids in this chaos? The country is not working, Nii. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes drifted to the photos on the wall. Ozzy in her school uniform. Toby dressed as a pirate from last year's drama club. His chest tightened. "But we've built everything here. Our careers, our church, our community. Can we really just start from scratch?" he asked quietly. Amaka walked over and placed her hand over his. "I know it won't be easy, but what's harder, letting go of our comfort or watching them grow on a new system that keeps failing us?" It wasn't a decision made in a single night. It was a slow burn. Quiet prayers in the morning, long conversations over phone calls to the UK, email threads and visa requirements, moments of hope mixed with guilt. Ozzy was furious when they first told her, "I'm about to write WAEC and now we are just moving to where?" She cried, slamming her door. "You want me to become a nobody in a strange school?" Tobi didn't know how to feel. He liked the school. He liked Lagos. He liked the security guard that called him Captain every morning. The idea of abroad felt big and cold and unreal. Still, the plans moved forward. They sold the car, found tenants for the house, sold off books, donated clothes, wrapped up years into 10 boxes, cartons. The final day at church was bittersweet. A special prayer was said for them. Aunties hugged them like they were never coming back. The pastor smiled too tightly. On the last night in Lagos, they all gathered in the living room after dinner. The air was heavy. Amaka held Ozzy close. Niyi rubbed Tobi's forehead, pulling him close to his chest. The generator buzzed in the background. The candle flickered on the shelf. There was a moment, just one, when nobody spoke. "I hope we're doing the right thing," Niyi said, mostly to himself. "You are," Amaka whispered, even though she wasn't sure either. Tobi leaned his head on his father's shoulder. Somewhere outside, a dog barked. The street was dark, but not unfamiliar. It was home. And in a few hours, it will no longer be theirs. Stories in motion.
If you have enjoyed this story so far, what are you waiting for? Why have you not liked and subscribed to my channel?
Murtala Mohammed International Airport never slept. Even at 11 p.m., it buzzed with chaos. Travelers dragging suitcases on worn wheels, custom officers barking orders, mothers fanning crying babies with travel documents. Tobi had never been on a plane before. He stood in line at the check-in desk with a small travel backpack digging into his shoulders and a lump lodged firmly in his throat. Ozzy, next to him, wore her AirPods but wasn't listening to music. She kept pulling her sleeves down nervously. Niyi tried to appear calm, but his eyes darted between their luggage and the document folder in his hand. Amaka clutched her handbag like it was the last thing she truly owned. They were flying out at 2:35 a.m. to Manchester via Doha. One-way ticket. The kind that felt heavier than a suitcase. Tobi turned around one last time. Behind is a large airport glass. The Lagos night spread out like a tired humming giant. Cars horned blade. Another family in a rush zipped past. Somewhere, someone was laughing too loudly. He felt a sharp ache in his stomach. Not a sadness exactly, but a deep, slow uncertainty. They had left their house in Surulere earlier that evening, the house Tobi had lived in since birth. He remembered how quiet it had been as they walked out for the last time. All the furniture gone, the walls bare. The echoes in the empty sitting room made it feel like someone else's home already. He had placed his hand on the wall by the staircase, the spot where he once scratched it during hide and seek, and whispered goodbye, hoping the house could hear him. A few neighbors came to see them off. Auntie Uju from across the road brought puff puff. Mr. Lawal, Niyi's longtime friend, said, "You people should remember also. Don't go and change accents and forget your roots." The hardest part was saying goodbye to Grandpa, Amaka's father, who came all the way from Anambra the week before just to pray over them. He was old now, frail, with hands like paper and eyes like glass. When he hugged Tobi, he whispered, "You are going to a cold land, my son, but keep your heart warm."
Tobi didn't understand what he meant then, but he would. At the airport, everything felt rushed. Bags were weighed, instructions came in clipped accents, papers checked. The immigration officer scanned their documents, stamped heavily, and said, "Next." And that was it. They were no longer just a Nigerian family. They were immigrants now. On the plane, the lights dimmed and the engine roared. Tobi looked out the window, eyes wide as the aircraft rose above Lagos. The city lights scattered below like falling stars. His stomach twisted. Amaka reached out for his hand and held it tight. "We are brave," she said, smiling, though her eyes were red. The flight was long. Layover in Doha, long queues, cold air, silent corridors, everyone minding their business. No friendly aunties offering biscuits, no one asking, "How was the flight, my dear?" Just announcements in a language that sounded like wind. When they landed in Manchester, clouds pressed low over the airport like thick grey blankets. It was July, but the air felt like harmattan. The cold hit them immediately, not just a physical cold, but a silence that felt unfamiliar. Nobody greeted them at the airport. They found their way to the taxi rank, bags piled up like stacked memories. Their Airbnb was in a suburb called Levinstein. The house was small, sterile, white walls, grey carpets, a thermostat they didn't know how to use. There was no generator home, no knocking neighbors, no distant mosque calls or street vendors shouting, "Bole!" They sat in the living room that night, exhausted and wide-eyed. Ozzy didn't speak. Niyi rubbed his head. Amaka scrolled through messages from relatives, checking if they had landed safely. Tobi looked around the room. There were no photos on the wall, no familiar smells, just the sound of the heating system and the gentle ticking of time moving them further away from everything they've ever known. That night, as he lay under stiff blankets, he whispered to himself, "We are not in Nigeria anymore." And somehow, that made sleep harder. For more chapters of this story, give the video a thumbs up and subscribe.